right, what's going on, everybody? The Black Independent here with a special. We will be refuting, we'll be addressing and refuting the points of that Larry Elder put up about a week ago or so. He was responding to Don Lemon in a report that Don Lemon had done about the rise of white nationalism. And if you are familiar with who Larry Elder is, he is the type of black man that Malcolm X has spoken about in his time. He's the type of black man that, as Malcolm X said, the whites would find whenever a black man says something that is substantial against white racism, white supremacy. The white media, the white establishment always tries to find some black man to try to come behind him and say something to discount what he said, basically in defense of white supremacy. So they'll find a black man who's their little puppet, their little pet, their little coon, who they can trot out in front of, the audience to go behind what the black man said, to discount it, to placate white racism, to placate white bigotry. And Larry Elder plays that role and has been playing that role for quite some time. And we're going to lay it out and we're going to show it. Okay? So for any of those who want to claim that, Larry Elders is called a sellout because he has a different opinion. No, that's not it. He's a sellout because, they say, oh, you only call him a sellout because he's about education. And no, we're all about that. Malcolm X was about that. Louis Farrakhan was about that. Talks about bettering ourselves, doing for ourselves, having our own businesses, education, and all that stuff like that. So no, that's not what it is. That's another myth that white racists have created to try to make themselves feel better about supporting these sellout coons like Larry Elder when we call them out. So they say, oh, you're only doing that because he's about bettering himself, and he's no. There are plenty of strong black men and women who speak out against white racism and are about bettering ourselves, no different. So no, that's not the reason. The reason he's called a sellout is because that's exactly what he does. And as I will show you in this video that we're going to start now. So let's go ahead and get started, and let me pull up some of the how this got started with Larry Elder so you can see what I'm saying. All right, so let's take a look at that right now. All right, so here you go. Yeah, this was, like I said, about a week ago. Here on August 10th, in response to Don Lemon, Larry Elder wants to come behind Don Lemon and, in defense of his white masters, wants to claim that, there is no such thing as the rise of white nationalism. Although, of course, the evidence says otherwise. We've all been seeing these videos of, the pool, what they call these people, the barbecue Becky and the pool patrol patties and all of that. All these incidents of blacks doing simple, nominal, everyday things, having the police call on them by self-proclaimed deputized white bigots. But Larry Elder wants to claim that, there's no such thing as the rise of white nationalism. This is a myth, he says. So here he says that to Don Lemon, dear Don Lemon, when whites, Hispanics, and blacks were asked who of these groups is the most racist, whites said blacks, Hispanics said blacks, and blacks said blacks, allegedly. And he got this from this Rasmussen Reports poll, which has known to be, which is ranked among the least accurate of polls, of pollsters, as you see here. Right? According to a study conducted by Fordham University, Rasmussen is one of the least accurate pollsters. Okay, it's one of the least accurate polls. Now, the poll that this poll was done several years ago, but nonetheless, Rasmussen comes up as among the least accurate all the time. It's shown to have a conservative right-wing bias. So it's not known to be an accurate pollster. But here, what we're going to show you that regardless of that, we're going to show you that regardless of what the poll says, the facts say otherwise, right? The reality says otherwise. And I'm going to show you that this poll, whoever were the participants of this poll, really what they did was nothing more than projection. They really projected their own bigotry. I'm going to show they really projected their own bigotry. How is it? I'm going to show you that it's interesting that they would claim that all these groups, and I doubt that the blacks who said blacks were the most racist were even really black polls, were actually black people, right? But let's deal with the whites and the Hispanics in this. Interesting how these groups allegedly claim that blacks are the most racist. But the physical evidence shows that blacks are the biggest victims of racism. Right? So how are we the most racist? But yet all the evidence shows that we are the biggest victims of white racism. So if these polls were true, then the whites and the Hispanics who participated in this poll did nothing more than project their own racism against blacks and try to turn it around and claim that we are the most racist. When both of these groups in Latin America and here in America make blacks the biggest victims of their own racism. So let's go ahead and deal. As you see, I responded to him on one of my other Twitter. I said, "Yeah, right." Responding to Larry Elder. Meanwhile, the biggest victims of hate crimes are black people. Victims of anti-black attacks every year is over 2,000 plus victims. Majority of the attackers are white. How can whites sit here, whoever took the whites that took this poll, and claim that blacks are the biggest racists, are the most racist? Meanwhile, all the evidence shows that in every category, we black people turn out to be the biggest victims of racism. So that poll is definitely, the Fordham University study is definitely correct that Rasmussen is among the least accurate pollsters. And if these people actually said that blacks were the most racist, this is nothing more than their own projection. It's really subconscious because they actually know that they really are the most racist against blacks. But to cover up their evil, to cover up their racism, they want to turn it around and say, "Oh yeah, let me say blacks are the most racist." But again, all the studies and the evidence will prove them liars. So as I responded to Larry Elder here, as you can see, saying that, look, according to the FBI, the biggest victims of hate crimes, anti-black hate crimes, are black people. Right? Let's take a look to show you that Larry Elder is full of it and the people who participated in this poll are full of it. So let's take a look at the victims, everybody. Let's take a look at the victims. And every year, you can go back every year, about 2,000 plus black people. The biggest number of all the hate crimes, whether religious or otherwise, black people are the biggest victims of hate crimes. Go back every year. Now, I always looked at it like this. You know how back when 9/11 happened, they would always bring up the number, the 3,000 or whatever number, such a number of people that were victims. Well, every year, black people suffer a type of 9/11. Every year, black people suffer about 2,000 plus victims of anti-black racism, hate crimes. So every year, we are the victims of some type of 9/11, basically. All right. So, like I said, let's take a look at it. So, as you can see on the screen, proving that Larry's poll is bullshit and that his claim is BS. And this is why he's a sellout, because notice he's going out of his way to justify white bigotry against blacks and to try to deny the reality of the growth of and the rise of white nationalism by going against his own people with falsehood, to say, by putting us out there and say, "Oh, well, no, blacks are the most racist." Well, take a look at the reality, Mr. Elder. Here you see the victims, right? Look at the numbers. Look at white, anti-white, right? Offenses, incidents, 741. Offenses, 844. Victims, 864. Anti-black, look at the number. Look at the number. Look at the number. 2 times plus more than that of anti-white. 2013 incidents anti-black. Offenses 2,358 anti-black. Victims 2,458. 2,458 victims. Black victims of anti-black hate crimes, Mr. Elder. Compare that to only 864 white. How are we the most racist when we are the biggest victim? Look how much, more than whites, we are the biggest victims of racism. Now look at the Hispanics, only 552. We are more than double both groups. Yet both groups got the freaking nerve, allegedly, to say that we are the biggest racists. Meanwhile, we are the biggest victims of hate crimes against us. Look at it. More than any group. Look at it. Nobody even comes close. Look at this, everybody. No other group even comes close to us in being victimized by racism, by anti-black racism. Do you see this? Look at all the other groups. Way lower, way lower, way lower, way lower. Even religion, even the Jews, even anti-Jewish, less than us. But somehow we're the most racist? Really? Really, Elder? Really, Mr. Elder? This is why you're called a sellout. This is why you're a sellout. Because you go out of your damn way to try to placate and discount the reality of white racism, white bigotry. And you make it worse by going against your own people, by trying to put your own black people out there as really being the racist ones. Really? So I don't want any mistake. I don't want anybody to mistake. This is why Larry Elder is called a sellout, a Sambo, a coon. Not because he's about education and doing for self and all. No. Those are your deflections from the reality of what he's doing. This is why he's called the sellout. So as you can see, everybody, we are the biggest victims of hate crimes here. Don't let these people fool you. But again, I want you to look at the white number, victims, and look at the Hispanic number. And then look at our number. Yet we are the most racist, they say. Yeah, sure. Whatever. Whatever. You go ahead and believe that BS if you want to. You go ahead and believe that BS if you want to. Okay? Then we go to the next one. Right? Then we go to the next one that he had made. The next claim he made. Let's see. Let me pull it up for you. The next one he made was, let's see here. Let me pull it up. Just give me a moment. Bear with me a moment. All right, let's see here. Oh, yeah, let me see. I think that was the other one, yeah, where he put up, again, trying to, let's see. Yeah, here we go right here. This one right here, yeah. Let's take a look at this one. Again. Notice though, this is why he's called the sellout, because all his blame is put on black people. He's going out of his way to put the blame on his own people. This is why he's called the sellout. A Sambo. This is why. See? Again, these were all tweets that he had done responding to Don Lemon. He says, "Dear Mr. Lemon, Don Lemon, more than 2 times as many whites are murdered annually by a black than cases of white murdering a black. Violent crime," he gives the numbers, right? But again, these numbers are false, and I'm going to show you why. These numbers are false. Actually, whites kill blacks more, but whites, when they kill blacks, it's 300, I think the number was like 350% more to be ruled justified. So therefore, it doesn't get recorded as a crime. See? It doesn't get recorded as a crime because these more often whites will be charged as not guilty and get to walk free. Okay? So we're going to show you that. But so again, he's going out of his way to notice, this is why it's called the sellout, because he's going out of his way to discount the reality of the rise of white nationalism, right? He's going out of his way. Oh, it doesn't really exist. It doesn't really exist. And look at that. My own people are the ones that are the racist, when the reality says otherwise. This is why he's called the sellout. I'm saying this to any white supporters of Larry Elder, right-wing conservatives and such, who think that, oh, whenever black people criticize him, we're doing so because he's like I said, the excuses that I've heard. Oh, you're only doing that because he's about education, because he doesn't agree with you. No, it's not because he doesn't agree with me. It's not because he's a so-called conservative. It's not because he believes in dressing good. I believe in dressing good too. Look, as you see it, right? I believe in dressing well and having my own business and being successful. I believe in all those things too. So that's nothing to do with it. Has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the fact that he is, as Malcolm X said, a black face white supremacist who is used by the white establishment to cover for white bigotry, as you see him doing here. So again, look what he says here. He says more than 2 times as many whites are murdered annually by a black than cases of a white murdering a black. Violent crime, black offenders, blah, right? So I'm going to show you that all this right here is BS. I'm going to show you that it's actually bullshit. Okay? I'm going to show you that it's actually bull. Okay? So let's take a look. Hold on a second. Okay, so let me see. Let me pull this up to show you why those numbers are BS. Okay, I'm going to show you why those numbers are bullshit. And which further makes my case that Larry Elder is the sellout that we called him out to be. Okay, let me give you more than one. There's more than one story on this. Let me show you. Okay. I'm going to show you that those stats are BS. Those stats are not reliable. Okay, here we go. Let's show you why those stats are not reliable. All right, so here's his next point refuted. Okay? He said, it shows right here, USA Today, while blacks executed, whites more likely to walk free in killings of black men. See? And don't forget with the police killings as well, right? Don't forget with the police killings as well. Right? The police are set, but don't forget, things like that don't count as whites killing blacks, because the police get to walk free. It's ruled justified many times, and I got reports on that too to show you that as well. So many times the things that whites do to blacks aren't even considered a crime. Many times the things that whites do to blacks aren't even considered a crime, so they don't even get recorded as a crime against a black person by a white person, because many times it's not even considered a crime. Take, for example, Ferguson. How many people have been poisoned and suffer from what's going on in Ferguson? Yet that's not considered a crime. Matter of fact, not too long ago, they were trying to bring charges against the governor and against the state and all of that. And the charges disappeared. They got dropped and all of this. So many times, the things that whites do to harm blacks in mass, many times aren't even reported as crimes. They get away with it because it's not even brought up as a crime, even though many of us are affected in mass, such as, I'm sorry, not Ferguson, Flint, I'm sorry, Flint, the water in Flint. Yeah, the water in Flint. So many times, white society gets away with harming black people in mass. And many times their crimes aren't even brought up as crimes. They get away with it, even though they harm us in mass, such as the Flint, Michigan water problem. You see? Also, to Ferguson, you know what? Let's include Ferguson, because there was a report that came out about Ferguson, how it was exposed that the Ferguson Police Department and court system were disproportionately targeting the black community there, the poor black community there, over-policing them, disproportionately giving them tickets, and it shows, the report shows they were purposely targeted. It wasn't that they were, committing more traffic violations or whatever. No, they were purposely targeted on purpose to write them more tickets and make them suffer more, with these exorbitant fines and things like that they know that they can't afford to pay. But again, that's not brought up as a crime. So whites actually do more things to harm black people. But because they run this society, those crimes that they commit against us aren't considered crimes. They get away with it. So as you see here, this article from USA Today says, while blacks executed, whites are more likely to walk free in killings of black men. As long as society holds stereotypes among core values, implicit bias will remain at every level of the justice system. Stuff like the death penalty, they say, since the 1970s, there have been 92 executions in Florida. Of those, nearly 20 were executed for killing a white victim. But until August 24th, the state had never, in modern history, employed the death penalty in the other direction, executing a non-Latino white male for killing a black victim. But we're the most racist, everybody, according to Larry Elder, and according to people who took the poll, the Hispanics and the whites, and allegedly blacks. We're the most racist, though, they say. Even though we don't control the court system, we've never made them sit at the back of the bus. We've never been able to keep you out of any community by redlining. We've never been able to suppress your vote with gerrymandering. We've never kept you out of neighborhoods due to homeowner clubs and things of this sort. Real estate. No, we've never done. But we're the most racist, everybody. We've never made you drink from the white water fountain, right? We never did that. We never made you sit at the back of the bus. We never told you that you couldn't be served. We didn't create the idea that you had to go to a separate movie theater, a separate restaurant, or that you couldn't be served in certain restaurants or businesses. We never did that. But we're the most racist, everybody. We're the most racist. Isn't that amazing? The people who are the biggest victims of white racism and Latino racism, white Latino racism to be more specific, but we're the biggest racists, they say, everybody. We're the biggest racists, everybody. We've never went around the world invading your countries, subjugating you to systems like apartheid, Jim Crow, committing genocide against the Europeans, but we're the biggest racists, they say, everybody. Like I said, all of that is really just a projection. That's just a projection of them knowing, they know that they're the most racist against us. But subconsciously, they want to deflect from that. So they go into a state of denial and they say, well, blacks are the most racist. But in reality, we're the biggest victims of racism. We're the biggest victims of it. And that's their bullshit attempt to avoid their evil, addressing their own evil. So it says, high-profile cases that have involved the death of blacks nationwide are all too familiar. And so are the names of the non-convicted. George Zimmerman, Betty Shelby, Darren Wilson. Yeah, and let's take a look at the George Zimmerman example to show you how the statistics are further BS. If you go back to the original Trayvon Martin incident, at first, they didn't even arrest George Zimmerman. Did you know that? If you go back and look at the first, how the incident first started, when they just took his word for it, that he was defending himself. How many other whites have gotten that as well? Where it doesn't even get recorded that a white killed a black person, because the police, before they even take you in, they already give you the justification and say, oh wait, yeah, you can go home. They let George Zimmerman go home. Go back and look at the original case. They let him go home. The only reason why he got arrested later was from pressure from the black community. When people found out about what happened, they started to put pressure on in Florida, from all around the nation, on Florida, and finally they reluctantly brought him in and arrested him. But when the incident first happened, they let him go. He was scot-free. They let him walk completely free. He didn't even have to go to court. They originally they said, oh, what happened? Oh, you defended yourself? Okay, you're good. Clean up, you go home. He initially didn't even get, had to appear, be arrested and put in jail or anything. He originally was let go. They took his word for it. Imagine how many other whites and white Latinos have done that and get away with it, where they don't even have to go to jail because the police said, oh, you defended yourself? Okay, no problem. Just clean up and go home. Doesn't even have to get recorded as a crime. Doesn't even get recorded that they killed the black person in a criminal offense. So originally, George Zimmerman, he was let off. He only got arrested later when blacks from around the nation heard about this incident through social media and began to put pressure on Florida, and then they reluctantly went back and arrested him. But originally, if nobody would have said anything, George Zimmerman would have been scot-free. Would have never been recorded as a crime against a black criminal, homicide against a black person. It wouldn't have got recorded. So how many have that same situation where the cops just say, oh, you killed him, you self-defense, okay, no problem, you good. And let him go. Don't even have to get taken into taken down and appear before a judge or anything like that. It doesn't get recorded as a crime. So this article shows that many times when whites kill blacks, it's justified. And they walk free. They get to walk free. It says these are just a few of the people who have walked free after killing an innocent black person. While family members were forced to mourn the loss of their loved one, these killers faced no consequences for their actions. The killers were from different walks of life, but the one thing in common, they all used snap judgment based on preconceived notions to kill a black man. But we are the most racist, right? We are the most racist. Meanwhile, when they kill us, they get to walk free majority of the time. Majority of the time. Here's another article that talks about it. White on black homicides are much more likely to be ruled justifiable than the other way around, than black on white, Mr. Elder. So spare us your coonery, sir. Spare us your coonery. Spare us your sellout BS. Covering for your masters. White on black homicides are much more likely to be ruled justifiable than black on white ones. But we're the most racist, everybody. We're the most racist, they say, supposedly. A recent report points out another racial disparity in the criminal justice system. But hey, Mr. Elder, the rise of white nationalism is not real. Institutionalized racism is not real. This is also one of his tropes too, that institutionalized racism or systemic racism is not real. Him and Thomas Sowell, yeah, it doesn't exist. No such thing. Meanwhile, all these reports say otherwise. But you guys go ahead, keep selling out. Keep selling out. Keep lying to make your white masters, your white paymasters feel good, to placate them. Yeah, go ahead. Meanwhile, the evidence says otherwise. It It says, if you kill someone, whether the criminal justice system throws you in prison may come down to your race. That's the takeaway from a recent report by Daniel Lathrop and Anna Flagg at the Marshall Project. They looked at federal data to analyze the circumstances in which a homicide was deemed justified by police. Their findings were astounding. In almost 17% of cases, when a black man was killed by a non-Hispanic white civilian over the last 3 decades, the killing was categorized as justifiable, which is the term used when a police officer or civilian kills someone committing a crime or in self-defense. Overall, the police classify fewer than 2% of homicides committed by civilians as justifiable. In comparison, when Hispanics killed black men, about 5.5% of cases were called justifiable. When whites killed Hispanics, it was 3.1%. When blacks killed whites, the figure was 0.8% considered justifiable. When black males were killed by other blacks, the figure was about 2%, the same as the overall rate. The racial disparity held up after controlling for different circumstances. When they adjusted for how well the killer and victim knew each other and how the victim was killed, white on black homicides were 2 to 10 times as likely to be called justifiable. But we're the most racist, they say. But he's posting some bullshit about that, we kill whites more, right? We kill whites more, according to Mr. Elder. Right? What was that? What was that? The number? Right? More than 2 times as many whites are murdered annually by black, right? No, sir. No. Those stats are not reliable, Mr. Elder, because of these factors here. That when whites kill blacks, they're 10 times as likely to be called justifiable. So therefore, it's not recorded as a crime. The white person didn't commit a crime. They killed you justifiably. So it doesn't get recorded as a crime. That's what skews the numbers, sir. Sellout. And when controlling for age, in addition to those factors, white on black male homicides remain 4.7 times as likely to be called justifiable as other cases. The disparity also seemed to hold up across the country, according to the report. Okay? So these are the reasons why your numbers don't hold your position. Here's some further reasons why those numbers don't are bullshit. Here's some further reasons why those numbers are BS. You know why? Here, let me show you. Let me show you why. Because of the fact that, well, you guessed it, study black people more likely to be wrongfully convicted. So therefore, that further lowers your numbers, sir. That further lowers your numbers, and that further refutes your claim that the rise of white nationalism is here. Matter of fact, the only way that statement is true is that it's clearly that white nationalism has always been here. These studies that I'm showing you came out before Mr. Elder and Don Lemon had their little spat. So really, the rise of white nationalism has always been here in America. It's not a rise. It's always been here. So look, as you can see, the stats that they bring to us are further BS, because look, first we see that whites, when they kill blacks, are over like I said, 10 times more likely to be ruled justified. And when a black person is charged, you're more likely to be wrongfully convicted. But we're the most racist, everybody. We're the most racist, according to Mr. Elder, Mr. Sellout Larry Elder. We're the most racist, according to the whites and Hispanics, and supposedly some blacks. We're the most racist. Like I said, I don't believe that report anyway. I don't believe those polls anyway. Because like I said, the reason why is that, as these studies prove, the reality says otherwise. The reality says that we are the biggest victims of racism. So I don't trust that poll that we're the most racist. Like I said, if any whites and Hispanics and so-called blacks actually took that poll, which I don't believe they did, and especially the blacks who said blacks, who considered blacks more racist. Oh yeah, whatever, whatever. But for the whites and Hispanics that allegedly took that poll, they purposely lied on that poll. That was something, that was a mind game that they played on themselves. They were in denial. The whites and Hispanics that took that poll were in denial. The blacks, I don't even think they even called any blacks. Whoever the blacks were, those were probably whites that lied. They were probably whites that claimed they were blacks who weren't really black, because the evidence, like I said, all this evidence that I'm showing shows that we are the biggest victims and targets of racism. How the hell are we the biggest or the racist when all evidence, all reality, all evidence, all proof shows that we happen to be the biggest victims and targets of others' racism? So that poll is just nothing more than bull BS. So as I said, Mr. Elder's stats are further nonsense, because as you can see here, we are more likely, black people are more likely to be wrongfully convicted. We're more likely to be wrongfully convicted. So that further skews the homicide numbers and the crime numbers, because black people are more wrongfully convicted. And here, before anybody says anything, because I heard this claim before, well, you're more likely to be wrongfully convicted as you're black because black people commit most of the murder. No, false. No, we're more likely to be wrongfully convicted because of the systemic white racism. Come on, people. I mean, really, think about it. Here's a nation that from the beginning has hated and looked down on black people. So how the hell are you going to look at it and claim that we have been given a fair shake, and that, well, you're likely to be wrongfully convicted because, well, because blacks commit more murder and stuff, which we don't. Rather than saying, well, this country does have a history of hating you and mistreating you, so of course, therefore, in the court system, it's going to be more likely to mischarge you. So instead of acknowledging that point, whites have said, oh, well, no, the reason why you get wrongfully convicted more often is because you're more likely to commit the crime. No, we're more likely to get wrongfully convicted because of the racism in the system that looks at us at a certain way already due to prejudice and racism, and therefore we get judged wrongfully and with a bias. And therefore that leads to us being charged wrongfully more often, rather than, no, we just commit more crime and murder. No, we get falsely and wrongfully looked at more often due to America's history of racism. And that's the way it's always been. Okay? That's the way it's always been. So it's not because we commit more crime, it's because of the racism that wrongfully is always looking at us with prejudice, as we have been seeing. This last decade has been beautiful because finally we now have evidence of what we've been saying for decades. We now have the evidence of what we've been saying due to people having camera phones. So now we get to see what we suffer. The barbecue Beckys. People calling the police on us because we having a damn barbecue. People calling police because we went to the damn pool in the neighborhood that we live in with other white people. But because of your stupid ass racism, we go to the same pool that we're allowed to go to because we live in the same community. You call the damn police because you don't think we belong there. But you think, oh no, there's no bias. There's no bias. And this bias permeates this nation. So that means the same people who call the police because we go to the pool in the same community that we live in with you, same people who call the police because we're trying to go into the apartment building that we live in with you and you don't think we belong there, the same people who call the police because we're having a barbecue in the park are the same people who sit on those juries, are the same people who are the judge and the police officers. So no wonder we get wrongfully convicted, not because we are more in the crime commit more crime, but because the people who are in control of these positions already have a prejudice and a bias and are racist and therefore unfairly judge us and accuse us. And therefore, we get wrongfully charged and convicted and blamed and all of these things due to that. Due to that. Okay? That's the reason why. Okay? That's the reason why. And I got more reports to show. I can show more reports on that as well. Right? I can show more articles on that as well. Here's another one. Study. Black people are 7 times more likely than white people to be wrongfully convicted of murder. And again, no, it's not because we commit more crime. It's because America is more racist, more prejudiced against black people. And so we're more likely to get wrongfully convicted. It's due to the systemic racism that Larry Elders wants to deny and his supporters want to deny. That's why we're more likely to be wrongfully convicted, because America has a history of looking down on black people. It has a history of prejudice against black people. It has a history of bias against black people. And therefore, that's the reason we are more likely to be blamed and accused and all these different things. And again, as I said, all these videos that we've been seeing are just the microcosm of the bigger problem. It's just that now we finally have video footage and proof to show, look at what we go through. Look how we're falsely accused of not belonging in the building that we live in, even though we got the key. Look how we're falsely accused and called the police on us when we're going to the pool, even though we live in the community that allows everybody who lives there to go to the pool. But they don't think we belong there, so they call the police on us. Look how the police are called on us for a little girl selling water. Bottles of water. So look at all these incidents that black people, we've been talking about this stuff for years too. Before phone cameras came out, we've been talking about these things for decades. We've been talking about police brutality since Malcolm X's time, since the Black Panthers' time, since Martin Luther King. We've been talking about these things. So this is nothing new. But that's the history that shows that that bias, that prejudice has always been there. And due to it always being there, that's why we're more likely to be wrongfully convicted and charged and falsely accused and blamed and all of that. It's because of America's inherent racism that Mr. Elder wants to deny is there. But the reports say otherwise. You can deny it all you want, Larry. You can try to defend your white racist paymasters all you want, Larry, but the evidence proves you and them wrong, sir. Right? So, let's take a look at another claim that he made. He made another one about supposed anti-black Semitism, that anti-Semitism, that blacks are, high in anti-Semitism, right? And this one's really gonna make you laugh if you see this one, right? This one's really gonna make you laugh if you see this one, because well, you'll see. I'll save the surprise for you. I'll save the surprise for you so you can see. Let's see, let me pull that up for you. And we'll address that one as well. Let's see here. Give me a moment. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Where's that article? Hold on a second. This is it here. Is this the one? Let me see. No, that's the other one. Wait a minute. Let's see. Hold on a second. Let's see. Okay, I think this is it here. Let's see. All right, yeah, here we go. Yeah, this is the other one that he. So again, notice how he goes out of his way. Notice on all these tweets, he's going out of his way to make black people the bad guys instead. But black people wonder why, white people wonder why we call Larry Elders a sellout. Well, this is why, because he goes out of his way to try to disparage his own people. So here you go. Here, look at this one here. Supposedly, blacks are 3 times more likely to be anti-Semitic compared to non-black Gentile U.S. population. But hey, let's talk about the rise of white nationalism, he says. Now, funny thing about this one, right, everybody, is that when I checked to see his source, guess who his source was? His source was himself. In an old article from 2002, Larry, why don't you show, can you show us something more recent, Larry? Look who wrote it. Look, Strange Phenomenon of Black Anti-Semitism by Larry Elder. So he quotes himself to prove himself. So basically, he quoted himself to make black people look bad from an article that he wrote himself. He's the source of his own claim. He's the source of his own claim. And then when I read, I didn't see any proof of where he got the claim from. It says here, anti-Semitism in America, according to a survey commissioned by the Anti-Defamation League, stands at an all-time low. But alarmingly, the survey found blacks 3 to 4 times more likely than non-blacks to be anti-Semitic. No link to the study or nothing. The article is crazy old. As you can see, it's from 2002. It's not even a recent article. But he posted now as if to show like this is some kind of, that this is still going on or something of the sort. But he doesn't give a link to the article, and it's his own article. He quotes himself, everybody. And by the way, when I read through the article, some of the things that he's claiming are anti-Semitic are not anti-Semitic. In the article, he shows how people criticizing Israel is supposedly anti-Semitic. Of course, we've dealt with that with Sister Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, where criticizing Israel is somehow conflated to mean that you're anti-Jewish, when no, you're just criticizing the wrongdoings of the state of Israel. So, and I read through his article, so his claim, it seems that he's conflating the same thing. He's doing the same thing. In this old-ass article from 2002, he's showing examples where black leaders criticized Benjamin Netanyahu or criticized some of Israel's actions as being anti-Semitic. You dumbass, that's not anti-Semitic, Larry. Criticizing the wrongdoings of the leader of Israel or the wrong actions of the country or the government of Israel, the atrocities, the human rights violations they commit against Palestinians, that's not anti-Semitism. So that means we further can't even trust that claim that blacks are somehow 3 to 4 times more likely to be anti-Semitic if the claim of anti-Semitism is criticism of Israel's human rights violations, criticism of Israel's leader Benjamin Netanyahu. That's not anti-Semitism. So that further proves that your supposed studies or surveys are nothing more than BS. If that's the standard of what anti-Semitism is. But as I said, when I read through the article, that's what it showed. He's talking about black leaders. Some black leader criticized Benjamin Netanyahu. Some black leader says something about, criticized the actions of Ariel Sharon and all of that. That's not anti-Semitism. They rightfully need to be criticized. That's not anti-Semitism if you criticize the leader of Israel for the evil and the human rights violations and the mistreatment that they lay upon the Palestinians. So a lot of what he said in the article is that's what he's claiming is anti-Semitism. Right? That's what he's claiming is anti-Semitism. He mentions here, look, Israel airlifted 20,000 black Ethiopian Jews. Yeah, but talk about the more recent things, Mr. Elder, of how Israel has been shown, how the Ethiopians have been protesting against the racism that they face in Israel. Show the recent incidents that happened where the Israelis were in their racism against the black African migrants. Show that. Talk about that recent stuff, Larry, rather than this article from 2002 that you wrote yourself. Imagine the audacity of quoting yourself as a proof to make a claim that you're making, that you refer to an article that you wrote your own self. Right? But this is the dumb BS that his followers, that the people who listen to him go for. This is the dumb nonsense that they go for. He quotes himself. He references his own self as his proof in his claim that blacks are more more anti-Semitic. But again, as I refuted him, as you see here, I refuted him. But I said BS. I said BS. Hate crime stats prove otherwise. Blacks suffer more hate crimes than Jewish people do. So cut it out, Larry. Right? And here, let's go to it. Victims of the hate crimes, which I already showed you guys already. I already showed you the biggest victims of hate crimes. Look anti-black. 2,458 anti-black hate crimes committed against black people. Jews only 1,000, but we're the most racist. We're the most anti-Semitic though, huh? We're the most anti-Semitic, but yet we're the biggest victims of hate crimes. More than any other group. You see that? More than any other group. Look at it, Mr. Elder. Look at it, supporters and fans of Larry Elder. We are the biggest victims of racism. Biggest victims of hate crimes. But we're the most anti-Semitic, huh? We're the most racist, huh? According to whites and Hispanics, huh? Well, I'll be damned, huh? Yet all the evidence says we're the biggest victims of the racism. We're the biggest victims of the hate crime. We're the biggest victims of anti-racism. Anti-black racism. But somehow these other groups are claiming that we're more anti them. Yet all the evidence shows otherwise. Ain't that a bitch? Ain't that a bitch? And here, you know, let's address this Hispanic thing. Let's address this Hispanic thing. That the Hispanics claim that we're more racist, huh? But yet when we go to your countries, how do you treat the black people in your countries, mi gente? How do you treat the black people in your own countries? Yet supposedly the poll said, Hispanics said blacks are the most racist. How so when in your own countries, black in every damn Latin American country, blacks are on the bottom? Every Latin American country you go to, blacks are on the bottom of the society structure. But we're the most racist according to them, huh? We're the most racist according to them. Some countries have never had a black governor, a black president, anything. But we're the most racist, Hispanics are saying, huh? You look at their countries and blacks are on the bottom. You look at Latin American television, you don't see black people at all. And if you do, they're still like where America was 100 years ago, 50, 60, 70 years ago, where blacks were only the maids and the butlers or the bad guys or the criminal. You look on Latin American TV, tell me if you see anywhere a black anchor person, male or female. Here, look. Let's take a look at this documentary that talks about it.
This is the colonial city of Bahia, known as the black capital of Brazil, the place where millions of African slaves were first brought to South America. Brazilians love to show off their Afro-Brazilian culture with the capoeira and the famous Baianas, a country that's long boasted of being a nation living in mixed race harmony. But while Brazil may look colorblind, that's an illusion.
Foi que eu passei maior constrangimento, trabalho aqui com captação.
I sell health insurance policies for a company that's on the 9th floor of that building. But when I went to take a white client upstairs, the building administrator said, no, you have to take the stairs. You cannot ride the elevator.
Many would have done nothing, but Silva reported the incident to the Justice Ministry's Office Against Discrimination.
Eles negaram Here we have always denied the existence of racial discrimination. We confuse racial coexistence with racial equality.
Blacks and browns, or pardos as they're called here, make up nearly half the population of this country. In fact, Brazil has the largest black population in the Western Hemisphere. But you'd never know it by looking at who holds positions of power. That, says this Bahia state congressman, is what proves that Brazil is not a racial democracy.
Da nossa população de origem afrodescendentes,
We make up 84% of the population of Bahia, but never in our history have we had one black governor.
Where blacks are overrepresented is in the slums, like Morro do Morel in Rio de Janeiro, where we met Monica Santos, a community leader who's studying social sciences at university. Monica is one of the beneficiaries of a controversial new quota system to guarantee university access to blacks, who currently make up only 2.2% of the student population.
I thought it would be rose-colored, but the resistance and racism of many professors here is fierce. They say that if you come from the ghettos, you're not fit to study certain subjects like philosophy, for example, because people like us have an intellectual deficit.
120 years after Brazil abolished slavery, one thing is changing: the awareness that this is, after all, a color-coded country. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, Bahia, Brazil.
And this is the same throughout. This is the same throughout. I can show you videos of other Latin American countries, and it's the same thing. The blacks are at the bottom. They're at the bottom of the structure of the society. Go to Mexico, same thing. Cuba, same thing. Venezuela, Uruguay, Peru. You can go to all these different Latin American countries and you will find that black people are at the bottom. Not because they're inferior, not because they're inherently inferior, but because racism, it keeps them down. As you see here, what's happening here, the same thing you will find in all those other countries, Argentina, etc. The black people are kept at the bottom. In fact, they even do the same thing to the indigenous people, right? It's usually the white Spaniards who are in power. When you go, you find that the people who are in power and have been in power are the white Spaniards, those who are more closely white Spaniard. If you're indigenous, if you're a mix of or you're indigenous or you're black, Afro-Latino, those are groups that are at the bottom. As you saw it there when they showed the little advertisement, that's who featured in the advertisement. That's who's on TV. The more white Spaniards type, the more white Portuguese types. They're the ones that are on the commercials, on the billboards, on TV, in commercials. That's who you get to see. You would think if you just went by the visuals of the media in those countries, you would think there were no people of color in those countries at all. Then when you walk on the street, you're like, man, who are all these brown and black people? Who are all these brown and black people that I see? But if I watch TV, you would think that those people didn't exist. So the nerve that Hispanics would take a poll and claim that blacks are the most racist, when in your own damn countries, you're the most racist against blacks too, just like the whites. When it goes to Latin America, you're just like the whites. You're just the same. You're just whites who speak Spanish, but you're just as racist as you are in America. But somehow we're the most racist, everybody. Somehow we're the most racist, they tell us. Ain't that a bitch? And like I said, you can check in all these other Latin American countries and you'll find the same thing. That the blacks are at the bottom on purpose. Intentionally, they're at the bottom. As you heard the lady spoke, that they want to keep you out. They keep you in the slums. That's by design. That was by design. Just like here in America, it's by design. The ghettos were by design. But you got people like Larry Elder who deny that, oh, no, systemic racism is not real. It's not real. It never happened. Oh, the hell it didn't. All the evidence says otherwise. Redlining, all the proof is there for all these different things. But no, not according to Mr. Elder. Right? Here, let's show you some other things to show you that, oh, yeah, we're the most racist, they say, huh? We're the most racist. Supposedly, we're the most racist. Let's look at some other things to find out if we are really, our black people are really the most racist. And if white nationalism is not on the rise. Let's see. Let's look at some more things to further refute the points that Larry Elder brought up. Let's take a look, everyone. Let's see. All right, let's see. Let's pull up some other things to further show that, further prove that this poll and Larry Elder and the rise of white. Now, like I said, the rise is really that white nationalism has always been here. It's been here, man. It's been here. But let's see. Let's see if white nationalism is not on the rise and systemic racism doesn't exist. These are the claims of Mr. Elder. It doesn't exist. It's not real. Really? Okay. Let's find out. Here, African Americans are paid less than whites at every educational level. Meaning, even if we have the same education, so you can't use the argument that, well, it's because you don't have, no. At every education level, we're paid less. We can have the same degrees as you. Same degrees as you, or less education than you, right? Or be just a high school diploma, but and a white person with a high school diploma and a black person with a high school diploma will get paid less. A black person with a PhD, white person with a PhD, we get paid less. We get paid less at every education level. But everybody, blacks are the most racist. Ain't that something? We're the most racist, but we get paid less, even though we got the same education as whites. But we're the most racist, everybody. We're the most racist, they say. We're the most racist, right, Mr. Elder? We're the most racist, right? Ain't that something? We can't even control the pay. And we get paid less than them, even though we have the same education. Even though we work our asses off to get education. And when we do get education, we still get paid less than the white person who has the same education as we do. But equality and justice for all, they say, huh? Equality and justice for all. Equality and justice for all. All right, let's see. What about some other stuff? How about when you go buy a car, everybody, right? How about when you go buy a car? Equal, right? Should be equal. Should be fair, correct? Right, you're just buying a car. Should be no problems there, right? But guess what? Guess what happens when you go buy a car, everybody? Look what the studies find. But we're the most racist, though. New report finds that auto dealerships discriminate against people of color. But we're the most racist, I thought. But according to Mr. Sellout Elder, we're the most racist. Even though we don't own the car dealerships anyway, but somehow we're the most racist people, everybody. According to blacks and Hispanics and allegedly other blacks, we're the most racist people, even though we don't control none of these institutions, but we're the most racist. We get convicted more wrongly than anybody else, but we're the most racist. We don't control the court systems. We get wrongly convicted more than anybody else. We don't control the court systems, but we're the most racist. We don't control any of the big corporations and businesses and the hiring practices and the paying practices, and we get paid less, even though we have the same education. But we're the most racist, everybody. We're the most racist. We don't control the car dealerships, the car manufacturing companies. And when we go to buy a car, we get discriminated against. But we're the most racist. Black people are the most racist, according to whites and Hispanics and allegedly other blacks. Like I said, I'm not even going to consider the other blacks because I don't even believe that. I don't believe that. But for whites and Hispanics, I got to get on your case. We're the most racist, they say. Those groups say. Meanwhile, like I'm showing you, in every example, every institutional example, we are the targets and we are the biggest victims of the institutions. But we're the most racist, they say. Like I said, that's just projection. That's just a projection. of their own hatred and racism against us. It's so vehement and hard and strong against us that they had to turn it around and say, well, no, I think blacks are the most racist, to cover for the fact that they know that they in fact are the most racist. So you see that? We go buy a car, you think you're getting a good price, and you're being discriminated against. You're being charged more money. They show that we get charged more money. The price gets, they'll jock up the price on us, and it has nothing to do with credit or anything like that. Just plain old white racism. But we're the most racist, they say. Wow. We're the most racist. A new report found that car dealerships for some of the biggest car brands in the United States racially discriminate against people of color when it comes to car sales and financing, according to the National Fair Housing Alliance. But black people are the most racist. Wow. We're the most racist, but yet we don't have control of none of this stuff, where we are the biggest victims of these institutions. But somehow whites and Hispanics think we're the biggest racists. We're the most racist. Yeah, you go ahead and believe that if you want. You go ahead and believe that lie if it makes you feel better, because that's really what that is. That's just a lie to make themselves feel better. It's just a lie to make them feel better from the fact that they know that we are the people that they target the most and hate the most. But they came up with these BS claims, right? How about when you go buy a house, everybody, right? That was Jim Crow, right? Nobody suffers from that today, right? Jim Crow was where they kept us out of neighborhoods, right? That was back in the Jim Crow days, they say, right? Today we can buy a house wherever we want, right? Huh? Oh, well, sorry, Mr. Elder and your friends. Evidence says no. Evidence says modern day redlining, how banks block people of color from home ownership. But black people are the biggest racists. Huh? Black people are the biggest racists, though, I thought. We're the biggest racists, but we don't control the banks. We don't control the loan companies. But you blacks, you're the biggest racists, according to whites and Hispanics. We don't control the institutions that loan the money. We don't control these banks. But we are the biggest racists. We're the most racist, they say. Mr. Elder. Again, notice that in all these things, we are the biggest victims of the racism, of the discrimination. But somehow blacks and Hispanics claim, whites and Hispanics claim that we're the biggest. Like I said, again, remember, I'm completely discounting the so-called blacks that took the poll. I don't even think those were blacks. They were probably whites that lied, said they were black, just so they could say blacks are the most racist. I don't believe that at all. The fact is, black people, we know the deal. So I doubt any black people actually took that poll and said that they, as blacks, think that blacks are the most racist. Nonsense. Nonsense. All the evidence that I'm showing you says otherwise. All the evidence says that we are instead the worst victims and worst targets of racism, rather than being the biggest victims of it. 50 years after the Federal Fair Housing Act banned racial discrimination in lending, African American and Latinos continue to be, and that's another thing too, that Latinos would claim that blacks are the most racist. Meanwhile, we ain't the ones who are putting your children in cages at the border. We're not the ones who are putting your kids in cages at the border. We're not the ones who instituted laws that make you that aren't allowing you to bathe or have toothpaste at the border. But what Latinos claim blacks are the most racist? We're not the ones pushing to build a wall. Right? We're not the ones pushing to build a wall. We're not the ones caught on video telling you to stop talking Spanish and speak English. We're not the ones caught on video telling you to go back to your country. We're not the ones castigating you because we hear you speaking Spanish, telling you to go back to where you come from. We're not the ones calling you a bunch of racists and thieves and illegal immigrants. But Latinos said blacks are the most racist? Really? Really, mi gente? Really, mi amigo? You said we're the biggest racists, but it's these people who are putting your kids in cages. It's this people mistreating you at the border. Is these people calling to build a wall to somehow block you out because they don't want you in their country because they feel that you're, destroying their country. Because you're not white, you're brown, according to them. But Latinos said blacks are the most racist. But whites and Latinos said blacks are the most racist. I'm really surprised, mi gente. Mi amigo, mi amiga. I'm surprised that you would claim that we're the most racist when these are the people that put you in cages, not letting you bathe for weeks, not wanting to give you toothpaste and soap, mistreating you at the border. But you said blacks are the most racist. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. But as you can see here, 50 years after the Federal Housing Act banned racial discrimination in lending, African American and Latinos continue to be routinely denied conventional mortgage loans at rates far higher than their white counterparts. This modern-day redlining persisted in 61 metro areas, even when controlling for applicants' income, loan amount, and neighborhood, according to millions of home mortgage disclosure act records analyzed by Reveal from the Center for Investigative Reporting. But blacks are the most racist according to Latinos and whites. But we don't control these institutions that are denying you your home loans, that are redlining, that are using modern-day redlining tactics. But we're the most racist according to Mr. Elder and whites and Hispanics. You're right. You're right. So as I've shown, you can take your statistics and you can shove them where the sun doesn't shine, because we see that your statistics are based upon your racism, and therefore they're unreliable, as I just showed, that blacks are more likely to be wrongly convicted, wrongly accused. So many different ways I could show it, but he claims that, it doesn't exist, though. Doesn't exist. Institutional racism, systemic racism doesn't exist. I mean, like, wow. Right? Wow, amazing. Amazing. Here, let me give you one more, too, before we end this off. Let me give you another one. Let me show you this one. Just to make the point clear, that did you know that even when blacks and whites are committed, charged of the same crime, people get more a punishment? Proves the institutional racism. The fact that the court system would punish us more for committing the same crime as a white person, we get more punishment. And of course, we've seen this also recently, where some of these white men were convicted of rape and such, and the one guy got the slap on the wrist, got probation, and all these different things. Stories where white guys were, I remember the one where the white guy was a drug dealer, and the judge had the nerve to let the guy go, saying that, prison would be too hard for him. Oh, so prison wouldn't be too hard for Tyrone? Prison wouldn't be too hard for Tyrone, but for Biff, huh? But for Biff, it's too hard for him. Even though Biff was selling drugs, it's too hard for Biff and Robert to go to jail. But Tyrone and Jerome, it's perfectly fine for you guys to go to jail. But Biff, oh no, jail would be too hard for him. Remember the other one? Remember the other bullshit they had too? What they call it, affluenza, where the white teen I think he killed 4 people. And they came up with some bullshit called affluenza, where it was like, oh no, for him to go to jail would be too much. And even after they let him go, he still showed that he was a degenerate and still got in trouble, committing more crimes after that. Got caught with drugs and all that stuff like that, proving that the judgment was way off, choosing that he gave this guy that white privilege benefit of the doubt, and he didn't deserve it, because after that the kid was still messing with drugs and everything. But no, institutional racism doesn't exist. Kiss my, you know what. So here, look at this one here. Look at this one here. Black men sentenced to